Hello folks, how you doing? Welcome back to the Heine House. I'm Jason and welcome back to another audio lesson. Got great response from the last one talking about understanding the mixer and OBS, and so I'm going to continue on and provide some of these audio lessons to help you fine-tune your audio skills, get better audio in your productions, on your live streams, your YouTube videos, and whatever have you, because number one, audio is completely overlooked. And so if I can share some knowledge, I'm going to. It's going to be fun. So in this episode, we're going to talk about EQ and exactly what EQ is intended for, some tips and tricks, and hopefully by the end of the lesson, you'll understand a little bit more about EQing that you can apply to your audio. All right, let's go ahead and jump right over into my main scene here. There are so many bits and pieces to this puzzle. I'm going to try to keep it specifically about EQ as that's what this video is about. But just understand that there are many other elements to this puzzle that make up the entire puzzle. And I will continue to make videos about those individual things in the future. But for this, let's try to focus specifically on EQ. What is EQ? Equalization. It's basically the balance of sound, the balance of frequencies. It gives your audio a completely different sound. It allows you to boost and or cut certain frequencies to allow your sound to be changed. Okay, so why is this important? It's important for many, many reasons. One, it allows you to boost and cut frequencies in and out of an audio signal. This is important if you have a source that does not reproduce that frequency, you can cut it out and get rid of it. And or if you have a certain frequency that's being troublesome, if you have certain frequencies that aren't playing well with one another, you can then go in and boost and cut and try to find the right balance. This is also called mixing. Using EQ is extremely important because this allows you to have an overall great mix of your audio. And when you have lots of sources like I do, I have microphones and game audio and all these things coming from all over the place, I EQ each individual source individually so that I can then balance that in an overall mix. And so we don't have this loud pummeling sound coming through because everything is tuned properly with EQ. Okay, so we're going to look at two different audio sources. One, we're going to be looking at microphones with this specific microphone, and then we're also going to be talking about a hi-hat loop. So number one, and I'll do a video on microphones and frequency response and polar patterns at a later date. Here we are looking at the frequency response of this microphone here. Here's our visual representation of that here. If we look at this frequency response here, we see it start to cut off right around about 40 hertz, right? Here's 50. Around 40, it starts to take a dip and it goes down and then it completely cuts off right around 30 hertz. Picking a microphone like this, we would understand that it will not be able to reproduce any sounds below 30 hertz. But this is a great resource from looking at microphones to understand where the microphone's frequency response lives and how the microphone is going to sound just straight off the mic. Now, I have completely processed this mic. It's completely changed, but I'm looking at something like this in order to boost and or cut certain frequencies that I want and don't want in my mix. A good spot to start is to go look at your microphone's manufacturer's website and or manual if it came with one and try to find a frequency response. This will really help you in tuning and understanding exactly what the microphone is going to be reproducing when you put some sort of analog sound into it, like a voice. Okay, so we got our new microphone, we plugged it in, we ran it to our audio interface, we turned up our gain, we put on phantom power if we needed it. Everything's like we could hear it, our audio's coming through. Now what do? My signal flow always starts, well, I guess not always, but I'd say 90% of the time starts with me hitting my EQ first. My theory is this: addition by subtraction. This is always the case when it comes to mixing. So what I want is I want to get rid of any of the frequencies that I don't want, and I want to be able to boost any of the frequencies that I do want. I want to start with something that is very clean and exactly what I want as far as the frequency spectrum is concerned. Then I can then take that audio out of the EQ and then start my post-processing with compression, with gating, with noise reduction, any of that. What I want is that raw sound straight from the microphone. Whatever the microphone's going to give me without any processing, I need to hear that first. Hope that makes sense. So number one, we step right into an EQ, and you can see my signal chain up here going right into an EQ. Now I'm using this Marvel. It's a VST plugin that I downloaded online. I like it because it gives me a nice visual representation of the complete frequency spectrum here from 20 to 20. Looking at my frequency response down here, we saw obviously about 50 hertz is when it starts to, the roll off ends, and we start to have our audio coming through at 50 hertz. So if you noticed, I basically have 20 hertz, 32 hertz, all of this cut completely out. -12, got rid of it completely. I don't even want that to attempt to try to come through, because if I leave this up here, you see on the frequency response, it's not there, but even still, it still can come through in the mix. And if I boost this up to 20, or I bring in a whole bunch of low end, you're probably going to hear a bunch of low end come in, or maybe some low end rumble, or when I hit the table, it's going to be very boomy. And I'm sorry if that's really annoying, it probably was. So let's cut that completely out. We do not want that at all. Any of that low end rumble, if you have air conditioning units in your house or trucks driving by outside on the street, if you live in a neighborhood or a busy street, all of that can play a role in your mix, and that's called rumble. But as you can see, so I have my 50 hertz right at 0. All right, we're letting that live, letting that breathe. And I do have a little bump here at about 80 and about at 130 hertz. 60, 70, 80, you see it actually dips a little bit right around here. Because of that, I want that. Kind of gives me that little bit more robust low end. So I've boosted it quite a bit. I boosted about 3 dB at 80 and about, what do we see here? About 6 dB at 130 hertz. That's living right around here. Because it dips, you can see it dip right down here. Goes back up at about 150 hertz, and then 200 hertz starts to dip a little bit. As we look here, I do have some more boosting and some cutting here and there, and we have some more cutting going on. 20 kilohertz cut a little bit here, a couple dB. 12.6, we've only cut about a half dB there, because overall it's a pretty good sounding mic to begin with, and I like this. It's a nice flat frequency response. Now if we had some sort of major swings and dips here, we had some major boosts at like 500 or 1K, that could be something that you would want to adjust and look at. It was a little low coming into my interface. I don't want to distort my preamp, but I'm boosting the output. Basically think of it as gear, as hardware gear. Your microphone comes into the EQ, boom, you do all your processing, then it has a cable that goes on the output that goes to the next piece of gear, if you can visualize it like that. I'm a very visual learner, so that helps me. So I am boosting the output quite a bit, about almost 7 dB out, which then goes into my noise suppression, which then goes into my gate, goes into my compressor, then goes into my EQ. Something happened when I was tuning this mic, and I'm going to actually demonstrate this right now, because this is also a very important lesson and a great tip for people who are experiencing audio issues. You can use EQ to fix certain issues. If you have either a ground loop hum or hiss, if you have any issues like that, because let's be honest, a lot of us are in our homes or apartments, condos, whatever, and they're not built to be studios or recording studios. So, but sometimes you have dirty power in your house and you have a microphone that's picking that up. That's something that should be addressed from the power side of things. You can get a hum buster. You can get, Furman makes a whole bunch of power conditioners, which you probably should get for your studio anyway. In a quick pinch and a quick fix, if you have issues with hum or hiss, this is how you fix it. This mic has, I'm not sure if it's defective or it's just the way that it is. It does not show this on my frequency response at all, but I have an issue with some hum. And let's see if we can go in with the EQ. We'll do it together and we'll see if we can figure out where that hum is, where it lives, and how to get rid of it. This is a really great lesson. And again, this is stuff I don't ever see people posting online or talking about. It's like super important stuff here. Here's my signal flow. Here's how it went. The EQ into my noise suppression, into my gate, then I compressed it. After I compressed it, that brought the lows up and the highs down. I noticed something. Let's go ahead and turn my monitor on. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn off my gate, all right, which now you're going to hear the background of my room. You're going to hear the AC unit running. The fan is going, and I'm going to turn off my noise suppression. Now, I'm going to monitor myself so that I can hear this as well. But what I want you guys to do is when I tell you, I want you to turn your speakers up and listen to this. I'll do it for about, 5 or 6 seconds. All right, so just turn them up real quick, listen to it, and then turn your volumes back down. I don't want to blow your heads off with audio. So let me turn my monitoring on. Check, check, check. Go ahead and turn your speakers up. Okay. Turn your speakers down. Turn them down. All right. Do you hear that low hum that's going on? I'm not sure if it's a defect with this microphone, but I have other microphones that I've plugged in here and tried, and they don't sound like this. So I've isolated it by doing troubleshooting. I've isolated it to it's this microphone. What you can do is what I've done here is I have turned on, after the compressor, I have turned on another EQ. Let's go ahead and open that EQ up. This is the FR EQ UA 87, which is a great, easy to use, simple EQ. But what I have it here is I have it set to be a notch EQ. When I say notch, what I mean is instead of the curve being flat like this, I am adjusting the Q, which is right here. You see on this pot here, it's called Q. It takes the curve, and instead of making it like this, it makes it like this. All right, so I'm actually going to either cut and or boost a certain frequency by notching it and making it very, very aggressive. I can then move that notch left or right in the frequency range to try to find a certain frequency that is causing me issues. That's exactly what I've done here. Unfortunately, I just gave you the answer on on the thing here. You can see it, it's 90. But let's go ahead. I'm gonna turn my monitor back on and I'm going to try to find this frequency and get rid of it. All right, so here we go. So a good rule of thumb to do this is to put the EQ in, turn your gain up quite a bit, and then sweep the frequency response. Well, first of all, turn your Q up, make it a notch filter, all right? Notch out your EQ, but then also turn your gain up quite a bit, and then sweep the frequency range. And so in theory, what we're doing is we're moving that notch left and right. And instead of trying to cut it, you could in theory boost it to try to hear where that hum is happening. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn my monitor back on and let's see if we can do this in real time. Hear how loud that is. 90 hertz. I have it boosted 24 dB plus. I found it. It's now doing this. It's going up. It's boosting. Now that I found it, I'm going to reverse it and cut it. 90 hertz. So this mic has a 90 hertz problem. But let's cut. Oh, hear that? Completely gone. And I've notched it. So I'm only affecting, well, for the most part, only affecting 90 hertz. Turn my monitor off so you're not hearing me double. All right, go ahead and turn your speakers. You can turn them back up or down for that matter. So that is a great way to get rid of any issues that you may have, especially in the low frequencies. I hope this has helped, kind of moved and changed into kind of a tutorial on how to fix some issues, but I hope that gives you a little bit better understanding of EQ in general. This is extremely important. I think the EQ should be placed first. You should get rid of what it is you don't want. I think EQ is extremely important. Lastly, I'm going to address the addition by subtraction motto. I'm going to put a EQ in line, and then we're going to EQ it together and adjust it. And I'm going to tell you about and show you the addition by subtraction method. But let's go ahead and insert an EQ. We're going to name it EQ. Boom. I'm going to open up my Marvel. Boom. There it is. Let's go ahead and play this. And I'm going to, in real time, start adjusting. Now, in theory, this was recorded with some sort of dynamic or maybe even a condenser, but most likely a dynamic microphone. It's very directional. A hi-hat doesn't need any low end. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that when we're tuning this hi-hat, we're tuning all that low end out. Depending on the mix, once all the drums come in, the instruments come in, you'll need to do another mix of the hi-hat. But let's just say if you're doing a live show and you have a microphone on a hi-hat, this would be a great starting place. Okay, so if I just pull up my EQ here, just reset everything. All right, so if I just pull up my hi-hat loop, I'm going to hit play on this and let this go. And then I'm going to just start adjusting in real time some EQ. Now, I know for a fact that we don't need any low end for this hi-hat. There's no need for it in the mix. So let's go ahead and let's go and roll off everything below 126 hertz. Great. You know what? Let's get fancy. Let's go 200. We probably could go even more, to be honest, because the hi-hat frequencies live all the way up here. But let's cut all that out. So right off the bat there, we are helping our speakers out by telling them, look, do not reproduce this audio from this microphone. It doesn't exist. It doesn't need to be there anyway. Now, maybe we want to brighten it up a little bit. Maybe we want to have the hi-hat cut a little bit more in the mix. This is going to be kind of aggressive, but we could, here's about 8 8K. Here's 12K, 20K. We probably don't need to go up too much on that one there. But I know the hi-hat's going to live right around in here, and this is going to get real bright. Now you're boosting a little bit. Now, that could be too much probably on its own, but if we bring it down, we can bring it back down. Let's say we have a sound in here that we don't really like in the high end, maybe a little too bright, maybe it's cut a little bit tinny to you. We could go ahead and roll some of this off. And just like on our frequency response here, the roll off, we could roll off some of these high frequencies and give it a little bit more muted. Have a nice roll off there. Or maybe there's a certain frequency you don't like at all. Maybe just test it. Just go all the way down, cut it, or go all the way up with it. You can now hear what that frequency is, and you can figure out where you want it to live, which is a great rule of thumb. So this is a great EQ setting, for like a real natural hi-hat. You could roll off a lot of that low end, because sometimes you may be picking up bleed from a kick drum or something like a snare. There may be other sounds coming through that hi-hat mic, and this is a great way to try to get rid of some of those so that we don't have any issues with that microphone as well. So I hope this has been helpful, folks. This is a great rule of thumb for streamers, for content creators. I get a lot of people who write in and they say, like, how do I get good audio? How do you make it sound like this? Everything is very specific to that individual piece of gear, microphone, the source, the volume levels. Like, that's why I think audio is so exciting, is because no two audio sources are the same. No two sounds are the same. Everything is so different, and they require adjustment individually. And that's great. It's always changing. It's ever evolving. You're always learning and learning new things. You're taking a sort, like this microphone, for instance. I plugged it in. I got a problem at 90 hertz with this thing. I haven't had problems with 90 hertz on my other microphones, but this one, for some reason, it wants to be a problem child. Okay, so we'll go in there and we'll figure it out, and we'll solve it. Now, could I write to Monoprice and be like, hey, this microphone has 90 hertz issue, send me another one? Yeah, I probably could, and I probably should. But reality is that I just know now these are like people. They're all individual. They have their own attitudes and personalities, and that was this one. So it's fun to go in there and adjust it. I'll just always know I need to cut 90 hertz out of this thing. I hope you've enjoyed this. I stream weekly, twitch.tv/the Heine House. Come on by and say hi. And if you like this tech stuff, audio stuff, tune into my podcast. I do a weekly podcast, the Heine House Gaming and Tech Podcast, where we talk about gaming and tech and audio and all that sort of thing. So I really appreciate the support. I appreciate the feedback. If you have any questions related to EQing, put them in the comments down below. I read through all of them. I will get back to all of you. I also have a Discord where you can join in and get at me real time. That's probably the best if you have something immediate that you have a question you need answered. I'd be happy to help you. Other than that, my website, heinehouse.com. Please check that out. I have all my music on there and my schedule, and pretty much everything is there. So thank you for watching. Happy streaming, make great content, and make great audio. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later.